Anesthesiologists, what are the best things people have said under the gas? I had a simple procedure done when I was younger, but it was my second time being under any kind of strong knockout gas. Before I went under, I looked at the anesthesiologist, who was a pretty cute grey-haired man, and said, "God, you're attractive." But I'm sure you hear that every day, and passed out. When I came to, I started hitting on all of the nurses, male and female. Two of my fav, both patients coming out of anesthesia. Am I in hell? I responded, "No, you're not, you're just in recovery." That sounds like something the devil would say. Count backwards from 100 to prove it. Or the one who stroked my unshaved arm while I was trying to keep him from pulling at his fourth, and muttered, "You'd make such a great carpet." Two of my fav, both patients coming out of anesthesia. Am I in hell? I responded, "No, you're not, you're just in recovery." That sounds like something the devil would say. Count backwards from 100 to prove it. Or the one who stroked my unshaved arm while I was trying to keep him from pulling at his fourth, and muttered, "You'd make such a great carpet." I love the implication that the devil can't count backwards. Might be the patient's lucid dreaming test. Do you have a test? I look at my hand, or try to flip a light switch or lamp on or off. I think those are really common ones, but I'm not sure. I had a patient start a joke before surgery and finish it when they woke up without promoting. I can just imagine it going, like, "What do you call a guy W a rubber toe?" Hours later, Roberto. My brother, when he came out of surgery after being on heavy sedation, wanted to draw a picture because Yo Gabba Gabba was on and they were drawing pictures. I gave him a pen and paper, and after 5 minutes I ask, "What did you draw?" He smiles and holds up a picture of a bottle of mustard. He was 17 at the time. The mental image of that dumb post-sedation smile really makes this hilarious. Got a chuckle from me. My husband went under last year, and once he woke up, by our appearances he was as sober as a church mouse. Walking, asking serious questions of the doctor, apparently no issues at all. He remembered the procedure and described it to me in detail. I figured he just never went completely under. He was craving Chinese food, and nothing would do except for buffet, so we headed down and loaded up our first load of plates. Evidently, he actually woke up from the anesthesia at the buffet. As far as he remembers, he was put under and woke up in front of a plate of chicken teriyaki on a stick. I had a similar incident with a concussion 14-year-old trying to impress friends at summer camp on the first day. Jumped over a picnic bench, cleared it easily. Didn't see that there was a rock the size of a two fists where I landed. Ended up tripping over that and slammed my head on the dirt. Got up immediately, played it off like nothing happened. Since I landed on dirt, I didn't have too bad of a scrape. Ended up chatting with everyone. Jumped the picnic bench again, since I was mad at what happened. Walked a girl to her cabin and told her I liked her. Walked to my cabin, grabbed my toiletries. Went to the bathroom, took a shower. This is when I woke up. Had everything explained to me after. Also, showered with my shirt and socks on. Forgot those. My dad had a double knee replacement years ago, and for a week in the hospital held conversations, entertained visitors, normal as can be, except he doesn't remember any of it, like, at all. Between the anesthesia and painkillers, he was lit the whole time. My wife is an anesthesiologist. When she was in fellowship, she had a patient say they saw dicks dripping off the ceiling. Ketamine infusion. As someone who gets those medically, can totally see this happening. 100% yes. I've had them for pain, and dicks dripping off the ceiling isn't even the weirdest thing I've seen. Pokemon performing surgery on porn stars is probably weirder. And yes, that happened. To my eyes, while doing a ketamine infusion. Huh. What Pokemon was doing the surgery? Last year they were knocking me out for a colonoscopy. It was the third time I had been put under in a year. As such, I had a curiosity. I had heard that when they knock you out you are still awake for a while. You just don't remember. So in the spirit of science, I proposed a test with the anesthesiologist. When she started the medicine, I would begin counting backward. When I would wake up, we would compare what I remembered to what she observed. Plunge it down. 99, 98, 97. I remembered nothing more. Minutes later I awoke. The anesthesiologist espied me and came over quickly. "What did you remember?" she asked. 97. She began laughing. You got down to 7. I was having a broken wrist set, and the doctor told me to count from 100. He told me afterward that I got to 50, stopped for about 5 minutes, started back up and finished. Had to turn you off and back on. Not anesthesia, but patient was heavily sedated and IQ. Nurse gave an enema, half-conscious response. Honey, you know I don't like it that way. LMAO. I have a similar story. Colonoscopy. Very prim and proper lady under sedation. As the scope was introduced, she exclaimed to op, "Darling, you said you wouldn't do that anymore." In high school I had a reconstructive surgery on my knee as I tore my ACL and meniscus in a sports injury. After the surgery I woke up in post-op, which was a fairly large room with probably 6 to 7 other patients in beds waiting to become conscious again. I was lying there all groggy and confused when 2 nurses walked over pushing one of those carts with a computer on it. They stood over me and were typing into the computer when one nurse said to the other in a sort of frantic whisper, "We've got to plug this thing in, or this one is going to die." Naturally, semi-conscious me thought that the thing was me, and I started to incoherently yell for the nurses to unplug whatever they needed to in order to find an outlet to keep me alive. Turns out it was the battery on the laptop that was going to die. Apparently the death rate for an ACL repair is pretty low. When I got put under for a colonoscopy, I didn't really fall asleep during the countdown. I just looked at the nurse a bit confused and said, I don't notice anything." And she smiled and squeezed my wrist and said, "Just give it a moment." As soon as she said that, I started fading out, and according to her the last thing I mumbled was, "Oh, that's buggered, you magic witch." I was given a relaxer prior to colonoscopy and was rolled into the room. Doctor asked me what I had done that weekend. I said I went to the MN State Fair. "Oh," he says, "eat anything interesting?" I said, "Why, don't you tell me?" No laughter whatever in the room. And then I was out. I swear she gave an extra shove because I half woke up during the procedure and remember groaning. My cousin had a similar experience before his colonoscopy. They gave him the relaxer and he then started calling his gown his dress and kept trying to cover his butt because it's not time for his close-up yet. I had my wisdom teeth out and supposedly still bleeding a good amount on the way to CVS to pick up the meds. My mom was driving and I was just staring out the window collecting blood in my mouth. Eventually it reached a point it was too much at a red light. Rolled down the window and just let it all flow out of my mouth. I look up and this lady is looking at me with just pure horror on her face. I proceeded, while still in some sort of haze from the drugs, to give her what I can imagine the bloodiest smile anyone has ever seen. She wasn't originally turning right but proceeded to make an immediate turn. I'm so glad I can remember this while still being high. Not an anesthesiologist, but when I severely dislocated and broke my knee, I apparently gave one of the doctors that was just finishing resetting my leg a huge slap on the back and yelled, "It's fixed. You guys are the best doctors I've ever seen." Giving a 5-star review. Wife said the nurses were cracking up. I'm a pretty big guy and the doctor I gave the friendly pat on the back was a relatively small dude. Not an anesthesiologist, but when my stepdad was going under for a surgery, he was almost out, but at a sweet point that the doctor told my mom she could ask him anything and he wouldn't be able to help but answer truthfully. She asked, "Do you love me?" My stepdad replied, "You need to go on and get your little Yoda shoes." I'm pretty sure Yoda doesn't even wear shoes. Dick move by the doctor. Imagine if the guy answered no. Seriously took advantage of the guy, lol. I'm an anesthetist, so I hear pretty funny things daily, but one sticks out. After a routine surgery we are wheeling the patient out of the room and the stretcher gets caught on a wire, a common occurrence. Well, I look under and ask the nurse, "What are we on?" And the patient replies super loudly, "I dunno, but it's bloody awesome." Made me chuckle. I went under for a nasal canal surgery, and apparently after the surgery I was holding the nurse's hand and repeating "I love you, don't leave me" over and over. Reminds me of that one video where a girl is under anesthesia and proposes to the male nurse. Nurse anesthetist here. When I was in school I was getting ready to get a lady off to sleep and going through my regular spiel. I had the mask on her face and I said "nice big breaths" as I pushed propofol. Right before she went out she said "thanks, I just had them done." I looked at my preceptor, we looked at the circulator, and we all burst out laughing. I now say slow deep breaths instead. I love telling that story. That lady made all our days. This is hilarious. I could easily see this being on a show like Scrubs. My dad works with that stuff. Funniest thing he's heard is, "Hey Mr. Doctor, my ass itches and I'm too high to scratch." Did your daddy scratch it? Why couldn't you just say dad? After getting my wisdom teeth removed, I looked at my mother-in-law and said, "How did you get on my rocket ship?" I broke my hand tumbling once and had to get surgery. He goes to put the mask on my face and says this is oxygen. I cough as the mask goes on. He pulls the mask away and I said, "I trusted you. You lying man." That's the last thing I remember. Oh man, when they put the mask on me, they said the same thing. This is oxygen. The last thing I remember thinking is oxygen. Now, patient, when I was coming up from shoulder surgery on a pretty substantial dose of fentanyl, my wife told me that I looked at the head nurse and said, "Your boobs are spectacular, I want to see them." I have no memory of it, but apparently the wife was mortified, and the nurse thought it was hysterical. She also said it wasn't particularly unusual to get comments of that sort. When I was 9 and having jaw surgery, the surgeon was putting me under and said, "Say bye to your mommy." And apparently 9-year-old me thought that meant they were going to kill me. My mother says I gave her a look of absolute terror and then passed out. Thanks for the silver. I didn't die, so I consider it a net win. You poor thing.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.
Please subscribe, like and leave a comment. Much love to you all.